Just one sec. Okay, welcome everybody to day 2. And it was a very informative presentation from Richard. Always learn a lot when I listen to Richard, absolute expert in his field. Today what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk a little bit left field, or probably a little bit of unexpected content, because I'm not going to be critical of groups like Anonymous or groups like LulzSec or hackers, but I'm going to give you some food for thought, a little bit of controversy around some thoughts I have about these types of groups, the individuals behind them, their motivational factors, those sort of things. So obviously yesterday we discussed the whole area of ICTTF being a not-for-profit organization based on the principle of being able to exchange information, teach people and so on. Education is key to this. We heard that yesterday, education of all different levels. But there's different types of people out there that need different education or are susceptible to being influenced, let's call it to the dark side, with their skills. And I think that's something that we have to be very cognizant of, that they don't succumb to criminality just because they have skills or a desire or a passion to be hackers. Because it is something that is actually something people actually really enjoy doing. They get a kick out of it. You know, it's something we need to be aware of. So, very briefly, cyber threats. We discussed yesterday, there are no hard lines between you're a cyber criminal, you're a cyber terrorist, you're a cyber warfare, you're a hacktivist, whatever. All of this stuff is all blurred into one. So you may start off being a script kiddie. You may start off with just an interest in hacking games and so on. Before you know it, you may turn around. I say you, but I'm really talking about an individual, a young individual who becomes part of these groups. And before you know it, you're subsumed. You're in a community. You're now part of something that you didn't even realize you're part of. And we've seen this with groups like Anonymous and LulzSec, where the greater numbers of these people were actually individual business people. They were lawyers, they're solicitors, they're teachers, everything else. But the ideology was very appealing to them, and people decided, oh yeah, down with PayPal, down with MasterCard, down with Scientology. I mean, is everybody even aware where the whole Anonymous thing all really started? It was Tom Cruise, right? It was Tom Cruise released a video about Scientology. People wanted to oppose that. It started this whole chain reaction, and it built from there. So it's really, when we track it back, that was one of the key points of where this started. So it can be for any reason somebody gets involved in this area, from any walk of life, and we need to be aware of that it's not always money. Money is not always a motivator, especially in relation to this area, which I refer to as cyber scum, and we touched upon that yesterday. So don't always think about somebody trying to steal your PII, your personally identifiable information, somebody trying to steal your secrets, your corporate intellectual property. It can be for other reasons. It can be for a laugh. LulzSec, their name is LOL security, laugh out loud security, and then it became LulzSec. It was for a laugh, and they started off doing things like they might give out your phone number and start delivering pizza to you at 2 o'clock in the morning, or they would do things that we'd laugh at and go, oh, what the hell did they do that for? Black faxing, where they'd give out your fax number, and everybody was to send a full black page of a fax to you to use up all your toner, right? And people go, well, who would do this? But the thing is, from a target point of view, you may become a target for them just because you come up on their radar, not because you're of notoriety, not because of your company, but just because they see that you've left the door open and you're easy to get and you're easy to attack. And some of the ways we see this happening is when it blends into the criminal world, is we'll see somebody might out somebody, sexually out somebody, that somebody's been living a straight life, but they may actually be gay behind the scenes, and they'll find something on them that they can embarrass with them, and psychologically they will try and control them, and they will start getting them to do things and say, right, I'm not going to tell anybody, I'm not going to let these pictures know if you do X, Y, and Z. And one of the last points they do just before they know they own you is they'll ask you to send a picture of yourself with a shoe on your head. Right? And once you send that, they know they pretty much have you then, that you're going to do whatever they want. And then the criminal side will step in and they'll say, okay, we want this, we want that. So they don't work in straight lines, they don't work in silos. So criminals are trying to, and even terrorist cells we now know are working within some of these groups and trying to use the power these guys have. If you think of Sony and PlayStation, 4 billion wiped off the share price. Now, you think of that in context of a pump and dump scam. and being able to affect a share price on a big name like that, you can make a lot of money. So I'm not saying that people at the grassroots level of these groups like Anonymous, Lulzsec, and Hacktivist are motivated by the money, but the guys are seeing the opportunity in becoming part of these groups or influence these groups or making them basically use the power of what they can do. So we've got hacktivists. This is the big stuff in the media all the time. It's the stuff that we don't really understand. It sounds interesting. It's very Hollywood. It's very, you know, is this really real that they were able to orchestrate taking down massive corporations like IMF, Sony, the FBI, Serious Organized Crime Agency? Are they really that powerful? Are they really that organized? No, right? It was one botnet, which is running on Facebook, that actually did 98.999% of the damage. And that was a criminal's botnet that he lent to Anonymous. And there's a small number of guys who are running Anonymous, and a lot of them have been identified. Anonymous, there's a huge cell of Anonymous in Ireland. Some of the leaders are here. They work in the banks. They work in the financial service stuff. It's quite easy to dox them, as is known, DOX, ING, and you'll find that these guys are in the normal walk of life as well. They're also in the academia world, but their motivations aren't about money. They have an ideology. So, and it's not all bad. Okay,
Hello,
small video.
Kevin Rudd. We are Anonymous. We have been watching you. It wasn't very long ago since you were elected, was it? The media hype surrounding your future government back in 2007 was incredible. Many of us Australians saw both you and Barack as beacons of potential to bring end to the conservative culture that currently swamps the USA and Australia. Many of us thought otherwise, and it turns out they were right. You, as a leader, have failed us. You are bringing an end to what is the greatest link between all people, the one thing that can cross all cultural boundaries, that can bring people together despite ethnicity, political or religious standings, class or nationality, the largest information transfer ever created. You, a democratically elected leader, have decided to do what only the most power-hungry of all tyrants dare. You have opted to censor the internet. This is why we, Anonymous, have decided that this censorship plan should be among our primary targets for elimination. We have two demands that we consider central to our ideals. Firstly, we demand the abolition of the censorship plan proposed by the current government. This includes the removal of all targets on the blacklist, and complete abandonment of any further plans and endeavors by the Australian government to censor the internet. Secondly, we demand the resignation of the Australian Minister for Broadband, Communications and the Digital Economy, Stephen Conroy. This is a man who has no level of understanding of the topic he is dealing with. This is a man who readily supports the abolition of free speech in exchange.
So you get the point. They have an ideology, and what you will see as we go through these, sometimes it's for a laugh, sometimes it's almost politically motivated. It's always got that element of anarchy to it, so it's quite appealing to us all sometimes when we're frustrated within the boundaries and parameters of life and so on like that. And hence, they're very appealing, especially for a younger generation to say, I want to be part of that. You know, I want to wear the masks. I want to go out and demonstrate against these things that I see are a problem in the world, and this is how I can be part of that. It's almost, you know, and you see how powerful this stuff is with even the Arab Spring and using social media and the power of that. And recently I was in Jordan, and I was doing a presentation there. And I was very careful of where I was, the sensitivity, what was going on in the surrounding countries in Syria and so on at the time when I was there. And I made sure that I sort of desensitized my slides and made sure that I didn't draw any reference that could be, you know, maybe not fully understood or taken in the wrong way. But just towards the end of my presentation, this gentleman came running towards me in the audience, and he was shouting something in Arabic at me. I went, oh, Dwyer, you've done it now. Ah, no. I didn't know what I did to say what was wrong or how I offended somebody, whatever. But somebody spoke to him, put him to the side. A couple of minutes later, 8 guys came along, took me in, went to the media room, threw everybody out of the media room and put me in the corner and went, oh, I'm in serious trouble now. What the hell have I done? And sitting in the media room, surrounded by these big burly guys going, how do I get out of this situation? Next minute, the guys open up, guy walks in, and it was the guy who'd come running at me speaking Arabic. And he was the head of the cyber command unit, and he had one question. How do I switch off Facebook for Jordan? Right, that's all he wanted to know. He'd got excited. He just knew this is the guy that can do it for us. We need to control social media. He saw this as the biggest risk to the country, full stop. military man, just want to know how to do it, right? How do we filter it? How do we monitor it? How do we switch it off if need be? And that's all they want to know. So this is a huge risk for countries. They're seeing it from a military perspective, law enforcement, all those sort of things, whatever. But from some people, the perspective, it's just a laugh. It's just for fun or whatever. So if we look at anonymous attacks, and I've listed a lot of them here, there's no common theme. Church of Scientology, Catholic Church, pretty much anybody, it can come onto their radar. And they have a sort of a 12-week anatomy of an attack whereby you will, and my name has come up from time to time on a list as a target, but thankfully they haven't come fully after me, although there was threats from some groups at times. But they will make a list of targets, they will get buy-in from a local cell to attack, then they will do it. What they don't generally do is, they don't steal stuff to sell. But we do see in some attacks what the first stages of those attacks is, they will try and get information now. They will try and use those things. And yesterday I spoke about the growth of mobility and smartphones and how they're now using that technology as part of these attacks where people will install the stuff on them. But if we look at some of these attacks, I mean, there's simply just no correlation between them. There's tons in there over the years and so on like that. I mean, obviously they'll pick popular targets like that, the Baptist Church, God hates fags, all that sort of stuff. They'll go after these things. They'll make fools of them, and we all will go, yeah, that was good, yeah. You gave those guys a good kicking, fair play, and that sort of stuff. But then they'll go after some and say, oh, we shouldn't have done that. But what they're doing is they tend to have an ideology, which is don't control the internet, because the internet should be free. I mentioned yesterday when I met Tim Berners-Lee, he talked about the internet being humanity connected. And that is exactly what it is. And what we don't want to do, obviously humanity can be a monster at times, and we don't want to become a monster to control the internet. We don't want to filter everything. We don't want to, and I'm coming as a security geek, right? I'm saying, let's not talk about all these mad controls we should be being filtering, controlling, whatever. We do need to manage risk. We need to manage what happens from terrorism, from criminality, all those sort of stuff. But we need to respect privacy, human rights, and people should be able to use this fantastic gift we have of communication around there. But here you can see from the map of the different areas that are being censored. Now, some countries start censorship for, they will say it's because they want to control, say, indecent imagery of children. Is it really? Is it the CIRCAM project trying to do that? Or is it the fact that they want to be able to control financial transactions online and tax them? So, you know, you got to look at what are the real motivations. If government really wants to do that stuff, yesterday I showed the statistics on the amount of known child porn on the Irish internet. If they really wanted to catch that stuff and switch it off, that's a no-brainer. I'll give my time for free and we can have that done in a weekend, right? That's not difficult, right? But putting in the controls they want are to controls around finances, taxing, all those sort of things, which seems to be more of interest to them. So you can understand why people ideologically go, yeah, you're right, let's do something about this. So they see themselves as providing a service, they being groups like Anonymous, LulzSec and all that. I'm banding them all into one. They see they're tackling a conspiracy to control the internet. They see themselves being the authentic voice of resistance, and it's a battle now between security and freedom of speech, essentially. And let's be honest, I touched upon it yesterday. If you can afford privacy, if you're rich enough, you've got privacy, because you can get super injunctions. You can decide which law in which country you want to control where the stories are going to be. You can decide to go over to the UK, and all the judges over there are very friendly towards very wealthy people, and they will have stories put down and so on like that. But in other regions around the world, they won't. Okay, now this got me thinking, and I said to myself, you're in the world of security, everything's about investing into new technology, new training programs, new solutions. Billions is being, and look, Andy spoke about it yesterday from Aircom, the fear, uncertainty, and doubt. I'm one of those people that, by the nature of what I do, I talk about fear, uncertainty, and doubt, and we spread the word. But we also try and pepper it a little bit and say, look, no, this is sensible. Let's go on with that. So it's not just about scaring people, but the security industry itself does itself a disservice by just using fear all the time. But they're creating an industry. They put out hacking competitions to create vulnerabilities. So they're creating a problem to feed a problem. You know, there's lots of, aspects we could take on this. But then I thought, well, why doesn't anybody reach out to the people who are the problem? And I don't think the problem is necessarily the With criminals are criminals. They're going to do it no matter what. They're just using the internet. We have the cyber scum. They're going to do whatever. They're just using the internet. But there's this other massive, massive group of young people that are getting caught up in all of this, that love the internet, have grown up around social media, social networking, the tools. This is how they interrelate with their world, is on the internet. It's not physically walking up to people. Their friends, their status, everything is all on the internet, and that's where their world is. And why doesn't anybody reach out to them and say, why the hell are you doing this? You know, what's really your motivations behind it? You're not a criminal. It's not about money. What's it actually about? There is one small project backed by the United Nations. It's tiny, right? They get very small funding. And they're profiling hackers. And they're looking at this and saying, well, hang on a second. What's the commonality here? They've started doing it globally around the world. There's a book available on it, but it's a very small project, but at least it's a start to do this. And what they've realized is that there are similarities between these kids. There are similarities between these people who are involved in this, around the socialization, their abilities. They often lack the human intelligence or socialization skills on a physical level to deal with each other and communicate with each other. But we need to work out the difference. Look, if you're a hacker and you're anonymous and you come in, or you're not even a hacker, you just say, I want to volunteer as part of this attack. The law treats you as a criminal. But are you really a criminal? Or did you just simply do the 21st century version of putting up a placard and say, down with the war, or down with whatever? Why should you be treated with criminal law for doing that sort of thing? Because a lot of this stuff is protest. It's not actually criminal activity in my eyes. And I think we need to know a difference to that. So yesterday I spoke briefly about the Carter Planet 10 years ago, created this as a business and economic model around cybercrime and so on. Some of the guys behind that, obviously that created as an industry, and we saw the proliferation of crimeware, sophisticated tools which anybody can now download and use to create cybercrime. So it's like the guys were saying yesterday, they know they're going to get, Michael Baum said yesterday, they're going to get the return on their investment. They know for every $100 they put in, they'll get at least $2,000 back in developing these tools. So that's where all the research and development is going on around those areas, and we've seen that as a massive factor in the growth of it. But let's look at some of these guys and see, from a profiling point of view, what do they look like? Who's behind this? Well, one thing is, they're often vulnerable people, okay? Because it's not the dom, the criminal gang lord who has the skills to do this, but they reach out and they get the guys that can, and they're often vulnerable kids that can actually do this sort of stuff, and they will seduce them and get them as part of that. So if we look at this guy here, Dmitry Golubov, AKA Script, born in 1982 in Odessa, Ukraine, arrested in 2005, but was released in 2006. Here's an interesting point to that. He was never actually convicted of anything, even though he's one of the biggest underworld figures in cybercrime, because the government there said, oh no, he's good. Why? Because he grew up in an environment, a culture where crime is the norm, right? Because growing up in the time he grew up in the 90s was, you only survived by being a criminal. You only got food, clothing, shelter by being a criminal. And he took it to the World Wide Web because that's what he grew up, that's all he understood. And he took there. He's never tried, and now, ironically, he's a politician fighting corruption. We have Renukant Subramaniam, aka Jilsi, founder of Dark Market, born in Sri Lanka. Age 80, he fled from the Sinhalese mobs who were killing Tamils at the time. Age 11, he was being accused of being a terrorist. His parents put him on a plane on his own and sent him over as a refugee to the UK. When he got there, age 13, with little English, he was bullied and escaped into the world of the internet. He was there very quickly seduced by criminals. When they eventually caught up with him, he was working in a pizzeria, not very good communication skills to speak to people, not even the language or whatever, but he owned a chain of houses, he'd done mortgage fraud, all those sort of things that he was involved in. We have Matrix 001. Middle-class German upbringing, obsessed with games, started pirating games, ended up in a world of criminality. Before he knew it, he was in too far, he couldn't get out, he was stuck in there. He's now convicted. Max Vision, aka the Iceman, mastermind behind the Carter's Market. He was a pen tester working in Santa Clara. He also did voluntary work for the FBI, catching pedophiles. And you'll see that as a theme between a lot of these skilled guys. They want to give you their time. They want to work and catch bad guys out there. So they will go after and they will catch pedophiles and stuff like that, and they'll pass on the information to law enforcement in many cases. This guy actually found a vulnerability in the United States military network, okay? The network that was protecting nuclear weapons. He found it. he patched it and fixed it, saving them millions. But because he's a hacker, he left himself a tiny little wormhole so that if he ever wanted to get back in, he had the secret key to back in. Some time later, somebody found that wormhole. He's now arrested. We have Adewale Taiwo, aka Freddie Bibi. I've done a lot of work in Nigeria as well, and it is an industry over there. It's part of the culture, the whole cybercrime side of things. He set up a news group called bankfrauds@yahoo.co.uk. He arrived in the UK in 2005. He had a master's in chemical engineering. He impressed everybody by creating solutions for the oil and gas industry. Meanwhile, in the evening time, he ran a multi-million euro empire in cybercrime. Okay. He was arrested in 2008. He's now in Wormwood. Kagate Evyapan, aka Chow, he's Turkish. This guy's like a super hacker, right? Because he not alone had the hacking skills, he also has the personality, the charisma to go along with it, and he is now serving time as well. My point is, all of these guys, despite their different backgrounds, share characteristics. They include having massive abilities in the maths and sciences. But society is letting them filter out into criminality or being treated as criminals for maybe protesting, being part of something. Their social skills have only developed mainly in their bedrooms on the web, and they've been working away and stuff and things like that. That's where their whole world exists. Many of them suffer from Asperger's syndrome. I'm not saying all of those guys do, but many of these hackers, when we look at them, which is a form of autism. But what does the law do? It treats them as criminals. And it says no difference. You've done something which you shouldn't have done, therefore you're criminal. So the food for thought I'm giving is, should we not have a different approach when these people genuinely, in many cases, are not criminals? And if we look at one that's very prevalent at the moment, this poor guy, he's got Asperger's. He hacked into the Pentagon because he thought they had information about where the UFOs were. The US wants him, and he's going to serve 60 years when he's extradited, and he will be extradited. All the specialists, all the doctors have said he will more than likely kill himself because of the condition that he suffers from. So his name is Gary McKinnon, and he's, as I say, facing a 60-year sentence. So my point before I hand over to Bill, who lead in a very positive way about these sort of areas in the youth and how we can embrace these sort of areas as well, is that I think that yes, there's a lot of hype around cybercrime and all these sort of areas, but it's our own kids, friends, relatives, so on, can end up in this, and they're not necessarily what we would deem normal criminals, and that's just some food for thought. So thank you for your time.